Hello. Hello, how are you? I see that some people already commented in the chat. As always, we'll wait like for a minute or two, okay? Until everyone can join who wanted to join the live session. Others will watch the recording. That's fine too. So hello to people who are here and hello to people who are watching the recording. And yeah, let's wait a few minutes now. And let me know in the chat if you can hear me well, okay? If you can hear me and if you can see me, but it's more important that you can hear me for now. Great. Good. Okay. Just in case if something stops, if it starts, if the connection starts to break, let me know immediately. I am following the comments both on my computer and on my phone, because sometimes that happens, but hopefully it will be fine. Summer is, well, over and we don't have any more thunderstorms. So, well, hopefully, hopefully it will be fine. And as I said in the first message, while we wait, let's share where are you all joining us from today. Okay. And I see one last bird who registered only now, and I'm sending the last email. And then I'll share my screen and start. It's interesting when you are one person orchestra and you're kind of trying to do everything, but it's fine. And I'm happy that you all are here today and wanted to hear what I wanted to say. As I said, this is going to be introductory session for the upcoming course, which is a new course that hasn't happened before. We had several groups of Lithuanian Genealogy 101, and I think it was quite successful. But this is like second part, I mean, level 2, let's say, and we'll see. So if you have any questions throughout the session, you can just, text them in the chat section, and then we'll come back to them at the end of the class, and I'll try to answer them. And the questions, they can be about anything. They can be about the course, but they can also be about genealogy, Lithuania, heritage, etc. If I manage, I will answer. And yeah, so that's how we are going to work today. Although it's an introduction to the course, I will try to give you a little bit of, useful information, because I feel it's important. So yeah, I'll share my screen now. One sec. Hi, Kim. Yeah, hello. Okay, my slides, they are here. And now you should see the first slide with the title, hopefully. So let me know if you can see them well. Okay. And then one more question before we start. I see a lot of familiar names, but I would like to know if there are any new people. Okay, so let us know in the chat if you are new or if you are already familiar with the work I do, with the lectures, if you have already participated. Newbie, okay. I never know how to pronounce the word. Is it newbie or, yeah, new? Some new people, okay, good. Hi, Chris. Yeah, I'm saying hello to the people I know, you know, that I talked to, because we had some, maybe a Zoom session or something, and I have seen those people. Good. Okay, so I guess those who come late, they come late, and someone once said to me that it's not good to start a few minutes later because it's not respectful to the people who came on time. But I feel that a few minutes, it's not that bad maybe, but sometimes people have technical difficulties, and then, well, maybe we should, offer this possibility for them to solve those difficulties in those few minutes. Hello, Paula. Hello. Hi, Teresa. Okay, then we are going to start. I'm actually, I don't know, anxious today. I don't know. Sometimes there are some, times when I don't worry at all before a class, and today I am kind of nervous. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. So again, if you have an idea or you want to share something like a little story, sometimes people like to share those, or just like a hint to other participants, feel free to do so in the chat, and then we'll read them. And yeah, okay. So today's topic is the magic of Lithuanian world, and the name of this class. Well, you can let me know, but I feel that maybe it sounds a little bit strange. But I was thinking, how should I call it? It's an introduction to the whole course, 7-part course. But also, I wanted to convey this message of what it means to feel Lithuania and to be Lithuanian. It doesn't matter if it's, one third, 1/4, or 1/8 Lithuanian, but we still, like, we know that we have these Lithuanian roots. And so, what I want to start with today is a question for you. What do you think about, like, what comes to your mind when you hear the name Lithuania? I'm actually curious because I feel that it might be slightly different for people who are here locally and for people who have Lithuanian roots but live somewhere else. So, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear Lithuania or Lithuanian world? What do you think about? What are the, like, associations, the thoughts, the images that you remember, And while you are, typing, I can probably definitely say that although some of those things might be the same for some people, usually they are different for everyone. And it's fascinating, because for each person, Lithuania is something different. And for some people, it will be language, as I see. For some people, it will be food, of course, courage, fighting, repression. What else? And I feel that for some people, it will be more related to the history and the events that happened. And for other people, it might be related to and connected to the culture itself, the deep heritage, the feeling, belonging, family history. Yeah. So, and also nature and mythology. Would love to know the meaning of the name. Okay, before we go into the lecture, I will say something about this. So, the English name, Lithuania, is odd because no other nation in the world, like in no other language, there is the sound, this, Lithuania sound. Everywhere else, it's letter T. It's Lietuva in Lithuanian. It's even in Latin, it's Litua. If you look at the translations of the name of the country everywhere, it will be just T. So I feel that sometimes it's kind of a little bit misleading because it changes the sound of the word. There are several, theories of how Lithuanian name came to be. If you read older books of scholars who maybe didn't know that much as we know today, you might even see that they were writing about one Baltic god, which whose name was similar sounding, and they think maybe the name came from this god. But there is also, like, theories that it comes from the word for rain, which is lietus. Also, I think there is theory about this river that used to be somewhere, and that's based on the river name. So there are theories. We can read about them. But yes, Lietuva and lietus are similar sounding words. Lietus is rain. So we can have our theories, but there are several. Okay, so we have deep connection to ancestors, we have magical music, culture, history, family, and roots, respect for nature. So as you can see, all of those things, they are different, what you said, but when we put them together, we have something like a feeling of what Lithuania is. Although to all of us it's a little bit different, but if we put all of those things together, we have this feeling that is hard to explain. And you cannot say it's atmosphere, but maybe the feeling is the right word. Something that you cannot put into words. I feel it's something like that. Although, if we would think about other cultures, each of them, they are special and they have um, their own feelings, probably, each of the countries, each of the nations. But as a Lithuanian, speaking to other people with Lithuanian roots, I feel that we all have this feeling somewhere in us that is Lithuania. And this was kind of an introduction to the introductory session, but I thought that as there are new people, I should very quickly say a few things about myself so that you know who I am and, decide if it's worth listening to me. So, my name is Evelina, and I am a genealogy and local history researcher and enthusiast, actually, and Lithuanian heritage enthusiast. My first background, like if we go way back before, I graduated from Gymnasium of Arts, which means that it's a form of education where you are studying in high school, but you are also studying like you major in either uh, arts, like drawing, etc., or music. So I majored in music, and while I was in school, that's when I took the first interview of my grandpa, genealogical interview of my grandpa, and this was like my first step in genealogy. But after that, I would just go back and forth. I tried to search for something, but it wasn't very successful. But I got interested again a few years later, and I just saw that people are researching the records. They are analyzing the records, and I didn't know where to look for them. So I tried, and well, I was hooked. So now my collection of information is thousands of pictures, many hours of audio recordings of family members, and family goes up to, well, it says 14th, and I think now it's 16th in one branch, just in one branch. But I gather not only facts, like some people only gather documented facts, where one person was a person was born, when they got married, and when they passed away. But I also believe it's important to gather spoken memories and stories too, and get to know the culture. We'll talk about that. And my main areas of work are teaching, both adults and students here locally in Lithuania. I go to schools, for educational programs, also private and open lectures and consulting in the topics of getting to know one's roots, family genealogy, Lithuanian heritage, local history, and traditions. And you might ask, what's my, educational background now? So it's funny because as I first got into genealogy, there are no genealogy studies here in Lithuania. So I needed to teach myself. And I was studying in one college here in Lithuania, um, organizational management. Because before I was working in a completely different area. But while I was studying, I learned that, I want to do this. So then I had my practice periods in museums, and now I am doing my master's in Baltic cultures and languages. So if you have any questions about that, you can you can about me or my background or the work I do, you can also, write them in the comments. Oh, that's very interesting, Karen. Thank you for sharing that, because I don't know Greek, so and it's hard to read Greek, but I believe that could be the origin. That would mean, well, it's a theory. I think that it should be described somewhere. Um, that the name for Lithuania came to English language through Greek language. I will need to look into that. Okay, so I am speaking about heritage, and this course is mostly about the cultural aspects. And you might have a question: why do I connect heritage, traditions, and genealogy? And I have an answer for that. I feel that we learn about our culture, we learn the cultural aspects, the traditions, firsthand through our family. And it's true, because if you think about it, everything you knew about the culture was before you started maybe doing the research. First, it was everything you learned through your family. And some people learned more, and for some people it was more difficult. But if we think about it, well, it's one thing when Lithuanian language is spoken in a family. It's a different thing if it's not. If it is spoken in the family, we can even, pass down the sayings, the specific structure of sentences, even specific words that are not used in other families. If the language is not spoken, there are still things that we don't think about them much, and sometimes I say to people, have you thought about this? That your heritage is not only like cultural things, but the things that you do every day, the way you learned from your parents or grandparents. For example, if we would try and see how each of us hold our toothbrush in the morning, we'd see a different view. Each person, they hold it differently. And it might sound, funny, but we learned it a certain way. And it's just an example, a funny example, but there are a lot of things that we would do differently if we grew up in a different family. So that's our heritage too. So that's just, a simplified example of this. And the way we firsthand uh, get to know our culture is through our family. And maybe some people learned some songs, maybe some people heard some Lithuanian words, if they don't speak the language now. Maybe some people learned some traditions or to prepare a Lithuanian dish that you still prepare now. So it's different for everyone. But there are, of course, different ways to get to know the culture, and we'll talk a little bit about them. But why do I feel that genealogy can be good for that? Why genealogy can be good for getting to know the culture itself? So the way I see it, that genealogy is not like a goal. Of course, creating your family tree is a goal, but genealogy itself, it might work as a tool It might work as a tool to get to know not only your family names and locations, but also the culture. Because if we start researching, we automatically will, learn about the history events that happened for our family. We will learn about, of course, about the specific locations. And then when we know the location, we can learn about the ethnographic region, and so on and so on. So genealogy kind of works as a tool in this situation. And now, well, you might think, okay, that's clear, but why do I say that Lithuanian world is magical? The culture is magical. We have many different cultures all around the world, and they are all special. They are all interesting. And probably they are magical in one way or another. But why Lithuanian culture could be magical? What is so special about it? So, of course, first thing, it's special for us because we have Lithuanian ancestors. But let's see. So now we are going into seeing both the aspects that are interesting, but also the aspects that can help us get to know the culture. So first thing of course would be the language. And I'll say in advance that each of these aspects will be covered in the upcoming course. So the language. And I will talk about it more. I think it will be part 4 or part 5, but for now, you might have heard that Lithuanian language is one of the oldest or the oldest language in the world. And it is not a correct saying. You might even have seen this video that was floating around and everyone was sharing it, where this self-confident guy says that Lithuanians spoke the same Lithuanian language 5,000 years ago that they speak now, and they would understand each other. So it's a very incorrect statement. Lithuanian language is ancient. Lithuanian language kept a lot of old Indo-European roots and forms and grammatical categories. And we'll try to look at that a little bit. So we will, of course, not learn Lithuanian language. It wouldn't be possible. But the session that is dedicated to the Baltic people will cover both the tribes and a little bit of history, but also the languages, the Baltic languages, how they came to be. And we'll try to see when did Lithuanian language branch from the Proto-Baltic language. And I will explain what that is, and when did that branch branched from Proto-Indo-European, that is thought to be like the language that was before. And the old forms, they are reconstructed, and a lot of them are reconstructed from Lithuanian language because it is thought, and in the science, anything that we start researching, including the languages, there are a lot of theories, and sometimes they get well debunked, and sometimes they are true. So for now, it is thought that Lithuanian language kept the most old forms, while, for example, Latvian is more modern. There are not so many old grammatical categories. Let's go on. Another thing that can help us understand the culture, and also is a big part of the culture, is mythology. And what you can see right now on the screen is, I think it's a very nice painting of a Lithuanian artist, Virginijus Kašinskas. And what you can see here, it's in the middle, it is the god of thunder, Perkūnas. Although, if you would look into Lithuanian mythology more, you would see that he wasn't just a god of thunder. We'll try to talk about that. On the left, dressed in blue, is the god Poklus, who was responsible for the, let's say, underground world, you know, the world of spirit. And on the right, dressed in green, is a god whose name is Patrimpas, and he is responsible for earth, for the land, for the everything that's happening on the land, and you can see that they are all responsible for different aspects. So Perkūnas would be responsible for um, the heaven, for the sky, this upper um, level. Then Patrimpas, the rest in green, would be responsible for everything that's happening in this world right now, everything we see here. And Poklus would be responsible for everything that happens, underground, let's say, everything that happens after death. So, Lithuanian mythology is very, it has, it is multi-layered, There are a lot of things that we can talk about, including folklore, because in the songs, in the tales, in, well, many things, we can see some different aspects of mythology. There are old gods, there are old creatures, there are very interesting creatures that Lithuanians used to believe in, and we can still see tales and everything about them. And also, of course, if we look at the songs, we can see a lot of things there. So we'll have this session about mythology too, but it will also include a little bit about folklore. It will be difficult to talk about everything, but we'll try to have this main view of how Lithuanians and Baltic people before that used to believe the world works. Okay? So that's what we are going to do. Of course, another aspect that is an important part of Lithuania is history. And history of Lithuania, it is, again, it has a lot of layers, a lot of levels, and a lot of important events. And if we learn the history, of course, we should look at different sources to know, the whole view, but a lot of Lithuanian history events resulted in something. And I believe that it's it's difficult to explain, because of course we'd rather not have wars and we'd rather not have occupations. But I think that Lithuanians took the best of it as a nation by preserving the culture, the language, the tradition. So we'll talk about different history aspects too. Now, this is a picture from one of the song festivals in Lithuania. I think it's 1946. And by showing this picture, I want to talk about songs, Lithuanian songs. And although probably everyone who has Lithuanian roots, they know about these song festivals, I feel that sometimes the feeling, again, I'm talking about the feeling of Lithuanian singing, especially Lithuanian multi-voiced songs called sutartinės, can be expressed better by this picture. It was made by someone. I am giving the link here, by someone who created this Facebook page about multi-voiced songs, about sutartinės. But this is something, that gives us this feeling, because if we analyze these songs, these old songs, because there are some songs from the later times that don't have so many hidden meanings. But if we analyze the old songs, their variations, because there are a lot, we can see a lot of things about Lithuanian mind and Lithuanian worldview, and even the things that were important to people here, and things they considered more important than others. Even, for example, the color names that are used in songs, they mean something. And I have recently learned from a great researcher who dedicated her life to research the native music. She said that the most um, the color name that is used most often in old songs is white. Do you have an idea why? If you think about it, why white? White symbolized, of course, as in many nations, it symbolized purity. It symbolized, how should I say that? Being kind, kindness, purity, um, this cleanliness of character. So that's what was important. So again, we'll talk a little bit about songs too. So these are some aspects that are going to be reflected in Lithuanian genealogy and culture too course. And now we'll go into talking a little bit about the course, but don't be alarmed. It's not going to be just information about the course itself. I have made these slides and I divided them into 7 topics based on the topics of the course. But now we have, for example, the first name of the first title of the first lecture, which is the rule. So I will comment each session, but then I will give you some information from the lecture that is going to happen, and I will share even some resources that you can already try and look into. Okay, so let's start with the first one, the rule. And by the rule I meant Lithuanian rulers, starting from King Mindaugas, who you probably might know about. The first king and the only king, it is said sometimes, which is curious. So we'll talk about him and all the dukes that came after him. Okay, although it is thought that before Mindaugas, Lithuanian land and the tribes, the sub-tribes, they were already kind of united, but there is not enough information and data to prove this. It is thought that before him there were already dukes who were ruling there, the land. And on the right side, of course, you see his wife, Morta, the Queen Morta. And now I mentioned that we usually hear about that King Mindaugas was the only king. So there is one aspect that I'd like to share with you about today of Lithuanian history that I find very interesting. And here in the picture, you can see Herzog Wilhelm von Urach. He wasn't Lithuanian, but when Lithuanians wanted to regain independence, to become an independent state, they thought that it would be easier to create it as a monarchy. And they found this person, who wasn't Lithuanian at all, and they wanted to make him Mindaugas II, Lithuanian king. Have you heard about it? Actually, it's interesting. Have you heard about it? Because I don't think that many people know about him. He has never set foot on Lithuanian land, and he wasn't crowned. But he was, well, it was said that this is our king. He needs to be crowned, but this is going to be our king. Well, he wasn't. So we'll, of course, talk about this whole story of how it happened. But I just wanted to show you that there was this person in 1918 who was supposed to be crowned as a second Lithuanian king, Mindaugas II. Yeah. Okay, the second part that's going to happen is going to be called the mosaic of society. So that means that we are going to talk about different nations that lived in Lithuania for the longest of time, and different religions that were here. And also, we'll talk about the social classes, the nobility, the peasants, about the serfdom period, so things that happened in society in different periods of time. And we'll also talk about how to research nobility, because it has some aspects that are different from just researching the church books, etc. And people who participated in the Lithuanian Genealogy 101 course, they already were, familiar. They should be familiar with how to find and research the records. But now we'll try and talk about how to research noble families, because you can go quite a lot further than for peasant families. What I wanted to show you today is this one website that I thought you might find interesting, and I will tell you a little bit about it. So this website is in Lithuanian. You might see. I will send you the link. The name that you see at the top, Lietuvos Bajorų Karališkoji Sąjunga, means Lithuanian Sąjunga, let's say society, Lithuanian Society of Nobility. But it has this word karališkoji, which would be translated as regal. And it's interesting because Lithuania hasn't been a monarchy for, well, the longest of time since Mindaugas. But still, this is how the organization is called. And the purpose of this organization is to unite people who have noble roots and who were able to prove their noble roots. What does that mean? So I think that their rules state that a person can regain their status as nobility if their ancestors didn't get married, and by that I mean women. If it's they are women in the family line, they didn't marry peasant husbands. And that should be before 1917. If they married after 1917, that's when, well, starting from 1918, there were no social classes anymore. Everyone were made equal in the interwar period. So, well, that's not a problem anymore. If a woman married a peasant man before 1917, she cannot. Then her descendants, they cannot regain the status. It's not legal. I mean, it's legal. It's not like official. It isn't recognized on the state level because we don't have social classes. It's just that this organization is like a club, and they have members who had Lithuanian noble roots. And why I'm showing you this is because they are also publishing a magazine that's called Lithuanian Nobleman, Lietuvos Bajoras. And if you visit this website, although those magazines, they will be in Lithuanian. So maybe you are learning Lithuanian, or you might want to maybe translate some things. Although you can see here that they have summary in English, and there are some PDFs of older, uh, older editions of older magazines, and you can open them and see. There will be pictures. There will be all these articles about certain noble families. So maybe you'll see your family name there. It might happen so. So I thought it would be interesting to, uh, you know, talk about. And I am just double checking if you can still hear me, because I had my phone open, but it stopped for some reason. So let me know if everything is still working fine, okay? And we'll continue. So this is about Lithuanian nobility, and we'll talk more. I will show you how to find some files. We'll talk about it, okay? Loud and clear. Good, thank you. And the third part, the circle of life. And this one, I think it will be interesting. And it will happen just before, or not just before, it will happen on the 1st of November. So first thing I want to tell you today is that 1st and 2nd of November, they are special days in Lithuania. The 1st of November is the Day of All Saints, and the 2nd of November is the Day of All Souls. And of course, now they are kind of church titles for these days. But if we look back this time, around the end of October, even up to the Christmas Eve, this was time of introspection, of making an effort to connect with your ancestors. And now we light candles, we have only these 2 days left for this. Before, it was like the whole period was dedicated to connecting with ancestors and like your inner world, something like that. But we light candles in the graveyards, in cemeteries. But before, there was even a tradition of lighting bonfires in cemeteries, and the whole village would come together, and it is thought they would, tell stories about their family members who passed away, etc. And I think that there are a few places in Lithuania where it's still done, but only a few, and I have never been in such an occasion because it's super rare. But and there are many cemeteries in Lithuania, but for now, the thing that is left is lighting candles in the cemeteries on these 2 days. And the circle of life, it's interesting because there is also this thing called Riedos Ratas in Lithuania, and it is like a circle of the year, of how the year goes, and there is this let's say a scheme where they show you how, starting from after New Year, everything starts to grow until we reach um, a celebration called Joninės. It's like the summer, and everything is on the peak. And after that, everything starts to, uh, how should I say that? It starts to become smaller and smaller and smaller. And the time of this November 1st and 2nd that we have now, this time after the harvest, it's when it's like a symbol of death. And then there is this underground period, until Christmas. And then everything starts to come up again. It's still underground period, but when we reach a celebration called Užgavėnės, which symbolizes the end of winter, then everything starts to grow again. So it's like a circle of the year. But I think that it could be well applied to the circle of life of a person, because it's very similar, these allegories. And a lot of traditions on these life occasions, vital events, the birth, the marriage, the death, they kind of resemble this circle of life, circle of the year, and they're very specific, they're very interesting. But what is even more interesting is that before each of those occasions, it doesn't matter if it is not a funeral, if it's not death that we're talking about. Even before marriage, we see traditions that symbolize the end of something, a symbolic death, because the life will never be the same. And it's interesting, people who research these topics, they say that now people just get married. They decide and they do it. No problem. But before it was a little bit different, because people went through the whole transformation, and a wedding wasn't just a wedding. It was a whole period from getting engaged, and there were certain rules about getting engaged and certain rules about picking your partner and the rituals related to that. And it was this whole period. And even now we have okay, I need to remember a word. I don't even know how to translate it, because in English they are different. When women would get together before the wedding, especially women, because for men it was different. There wasn't a tradition of having like a party, for the groom. No, they might get together just to talk and have fun, maybe go to a local dance for the last time as an unmarried man with his friends. But for women, there were a lot of rituals. The women would come together, and they would even cry together to say goodbye to this old version of this girl, so that she can greet her new version as a woman, as a wife. So, they knew that the life will be different after this. They kind of um, felt it, and they were able to accept it. So I think, even if we think in modern terms, psychology, it was better for psychology, because you would say goodbye to your old life, and you would understand in your heart, in your head, that this is a change, that it is going to change. Yeah. So very interesting things, and very interesting rituals, and some of the even old rituals. I will talk a little bit about them. They are sometimes a little bit scary, you know? Yeah. So we'll see. And also, although some people who already participated in the first course, they will know about this, but I will also show you a little bit how to use electronic archive information system, because we also talk about how these old traditions, they were reflected in the records, in the church records, although those old traditions come from the old faith, old traditions, Baltic traditions, but they kind of got intertwined, and some of those things, they are reflected in the record. So we'll talk about that, and I'll show you how to use this platform, okay? And hopefully it will be useful, because you can also not only search for the records here, but also some pictures and some other documents. But I just wanted to show you today that this exists. I'll send you the link so that you can maybe look around. And it's a very good thing that they have English option, because a lot of these databases, they don't, but this has. And I realized that their the cover picture is a little bit odd. I don't know, maybe someone who put it here don't know French, I think. And I don't know French, but I understand, the headline. So it's interesting. Yeah, but that's what they picked. They could have picked something else. Okay. The fourth topic will be about the Baltic world, and about the language, about how it came to be, about the history of the tribes. And I just wanted to show you today a map that illustrates Baltic tribes. So you can see where Lithuanians are, and then you have Samogitians, and you have Aukštaičiai. It's interesting they said Aukštaitians, but it's just odd to say it like that. So if we would translate it, it would be Highland Lithuanians. And some magicians translated as lowland Lithuanians, but sometimes it is argued that this name didn't maybe come from the word low, although žemas means low, and it's Žemaikytė in Lithuanian, and I think it comes from Latin. Some magicians, this name, it comes from Latin, and you might even see these arguments on Facebook, for example. People start arguing about the Samogitian history and the Lithuanian history, where we are just one country now, and it was just, the country, like they were united nations, united tribes, but in different time periods they are represented as separate tribes and separate lands, and in other periods they are represented as one land. So it's very interesting, and people get really crazy about it. They start arguing, and they are like, you are believing in lies. So you might see those, just know that. And you can also see other Baltic tribes represented, and now we know the territory north to Lithuania as Latvia, but you can see that 4 tribes lived in that territory. They were Latgalians, Semigalians, it would be Žiemgaliai in Lithuania, Selonians, and Curonians. So actually, what we know now as the modern ethnographic Žemaikytė, Samogišė, was partly actually a land of Curonians, which is interesting. And we still have remnants of Curonian language in Lithuanian language, but also especially in the Samogitian language or dialect. And again, that's another topic for arguing if Samogitian is a separate language or a dialect, because there are several main dialects in Lithuania, and you can see a map here. And usually they are divided as Samogitian and Aukštaityje dialect. And then Aukštaityje dialect is divided into 3 main ones. That is Aukštaičių, Aukštaityje dialect, and Dzūkija dialect, and Suvalkija dialect. And then there are these subdialects that are smaller, and each subdialect would be divided into something that I cannot even translate. They are like variations of the subdialect, and they can be different in each little town. So we'll try to talk about that too. How these dialects formed, based on what, and if they had any impact from the old tribes. Now we have part 5, leaving the familiar behind. So mostly we will focus on immigration, the reasons people emigrated, and how it happened, the process, and where to look for information on certain aspects. So for now, I'll only show you this, that if you have people who came to your country through a DP camp, displaced persons camp, you should just do this one thing first to receive like some background information. You should contact Arolsen Archives. It is based in Germany, I think, but it's an international center on Nazi persecution. But they have documents about DP camps and people who lived in the DP camps. And you can search their online archive and try to find something on your own. But if you don't manage, if you cannot manage to do it, you don't see any results. Their documents are not only on their outside system, but they have like an inner system where they can look for information. So you need to fill out this form, and then in a month or two, they will tell you if they have something on the person or on the family you are looking information about. You want to find information about them. So yeah, I feel that this is important and you should do it definitely. And some people already did, and they received very good information, very good documents. So if you maybe if your family came through a DP camp to your country and you feel that you know almost nothing about them, this would be the first step. And we'll also talk about other resources, of course. Sorry. Part 6. And it will be, I don't know if people are interested, but I thought it's a good idea to speak a little bit about the people who left a mark in the history, in Lithuanian history, but also in the world history. So today, I'll just quickly speak about a few of those people. The first person would be Marija Gimbutas, or Marija Gimbutienė in Lithuanian. I think that she shortened her name in order for people in the States to pronounce it easier. And this person is actually, she was almost like a genius, although her contemporaries, especially men, they didn't believe in her theories. And she needed to fight for her theories. She needed to prove that she is worthy. She is thought to be one of the 3 female archaeologists in the world who made the biggest impact. And there are quite a lot of books. And in English, you can definitely find her books. You can read them. And it's interesting because although she was an archaeologist, she really tried to research the world of myth. Lithuanian mythology is part of that. Baltic mythology is part of that. But she also looked at the cult of a deity, a female deity, and at her findings. She had like a collection of findings that symbolized, like physical findings. They symbolized like a female deities, goddesses, and she kind of researched that a lot, of what was the early view of the society, and when women were kind of the center of the society. And now, well, a lot of feminist movements use her name and her, as a symbol of their movements. But scientists say that, well, she wasn't a feminist, and she kind of didn't want to be represented. Well, you cannot say she wasn't a feminist. She didn't participate in the movements, and she didn't have anything like a connection to them. So maybe some of her findings are sometimes used and a little bit changed by these movements. But if you want to actually see what she talked about, what she researched, you should just read her books. And there, well, now a movie is being created, I think, in Lithuania, and they have created this podcast series from the materials of what they filmed for the movie. But I'll need to double check if maybe they are going to translate this movie, or maybe it's already translated to English. I think it's very interesting. Another person, and I wonder if you recognize the style, is actually a genius, I think. It's a Lithuanian composer and painter, Mikolajus Konstantinas Čiurlionis. And now he is like on the peak of popularity, actually. And well, it's interesting also because his great grandson is a musician, a very good musician. And he is trying to, preserve his great grandpa's work. They are playing his music, but also he's very popular. This person, Čiurlionis, he's very popular now, and people are talking a lot about him. But if you look at the paintings, this is called The Tale of a Castle. This is called Rex. And you can see the silhouette of a king. That's why Rex. This is my favorite. It's called The Tale of Kings. And his work, well, I cannot analyze it artistically, but I can just say that it's very mysterious. There are a lot of hidden meanings, and it just kind of lets you feel this old Lithuanian spirit or Lithuanian feeling. If you just look through his paintings, there are a lot. And if you haven't heard his music, you should. I'll send you a link. There are a lot of music that he created. He later became a very sick man, and he passed away young, but he created so many things. And he created these two musical poems. One is called The Sea, and another is called In the Forest. And they are, well, they are magnificent. So I'll send you the links, and you can let me know what you think about them. And actually, yes, it's 150 years since his birth, so a lot of events happening this year in his memory. And if you just put the letters M, K, and Ch, which is like letter C, but with this little tick mark, M, K, Ch, you will immediately get results on Google, because his initials, they are understandable to anyone. So yeah, he's considered one of the greatest geniuses of Lithuania. And of course, we'll talk more about his life. We'll talk more about his creations. But for now, just a sneak peek, and maybe you will enjoy. If you haven't yet, you will enjoy looking through his paintings, because there are a lot, and all of them. Even if you look at this one, you can see the details. There are some animals and people here, and there are buildings hidden in the branches. So it's just a whole thing. But he also painted many things, like he painted pyramids. Many things. So you can just look through the paintings for now, and then we'll maybe talk when we meet for the session. I will try about, we'll talk more about some people and we'll just quickly mention some others because it's not possible to talk about all of them, but I thought they are worth mentioning. Maybe, we'll talk about some of them in groups because there are some, for example, linguists that are included in the list, and they are quite responsible for what we have now about the language, about the dialects, and, they researched it. There's this one person, Jonas Jablonskis, who basically created the modern state language, and he published Lithuanian grammar in 1901. So what we are speaking now, and we call Lithuanian language, it didn't exist before. We can say that it was dialects that existed, but not this modern language that we have now. Of course, now it became even more modern words, international words, etc. But yeah, there is this one person who, well, is considered responsible for having the state language at all. And the last session, the last session, the world of myth. We talked a little bit about it, but we'll also talk about the traditions of the Advent period before Christmas. I thought it's fitting because it will be like the last days of November before December. And what you see now in the picture, I wonder if you have seen these like in life, in real life. These are called straw gardens. So they are kind of like chandeliers, but they are made of straw, and there are many interesting things about them. It was considered very important to have them. People would have them made for the birth of a child, then they would have them made for the marriage, for when for a wedding, for the marriage, then they would need to keep it. And also they would have them made each year, especially for Christmas. And what is interesting is that it was considered that this period after the harvest until Christmas, it was considered that these straw gardens were a place in a home, in a house where ancestors can come to visit their families. Like a place where ancestors come. So this was the belief, and they were considered very important. And now we have masters who make them, and it's not that easy to make it. I have never made one. And when you look at them, they kind of move all the time a little bit. So they are magical. They are definitely magical. So this is just one aspect that we'll talk about, but I thought it was, well, interesting to mention. And I have just given you some sneak peeks from each topic, I thought that maybe you'll find them interesting or useful. I will send you the links that I talked about. But if we need to make kind of a semi-conclusion for this, is that's my belief that everyone has a right to get to know their roots. And sometimes it might be difficult, sometimes it might be challenging. But I feel that everyone should have a chance to get to know their roots. And we all learn in different ways. And someone said, I can just read about it. And that's fine. You can just read about it. But if you maybe learn in a different way, you want to hear it, you want to maybe ask questions. And this is an easier way. I'm here for you, And you might have this question. So if I want to get to know my roots, if I want to get to know my culture, how should I start? So I'd say that the first question that we should ask ourselves is, what do I know about my family history? And from that, you can build on it. Because if you start researching the events that happened in your family history, if you start researching what was important to your ancestors, if you learn about the songs your ancestors sang, about the things that were important, about the traditions that were important to them, then you can start learning about the culture too. Because otherwise, I feel that when people, they start learning about the culture, it's kind of abstract for us. Oh, well, we see, oh, it's a nice sash. It's hand woven. Okay, that's nice. But if we connect this knowledge with the fact that maybe we find a picture of our grandma wearing a national costume, or if we learn that our great grandma loved a specific song, especially that song, or if we learn about the historic events that made an impact to our family history, and of course they did, especially if your family, they emigrated, there was some reason that they needed to move, or they chose to move. So then this culture, this heritage, it becomes personal. We can find this personal connection that allows us to actually feel this feeling of Lithuania, and we actually can imagine it. We can, see it better. And all of those things, the folklore, the art, the crafts, the songs, everything, it's kind of encoded in our ancestry. It's encoded in our family history, in the cultural things that were important in our specific family history. And from that, we can actually get to know our culture better. And I was speaking, well, not speaking, I was participating in this meeting, and this woman, her name is Ruta Viljunine. She is ethno, how should I say it? She is a researcher of ethnic music that I have mentioned before. And she said, that people who left Lithuania, who emigrated, they always talked about Lithuania. Well, they usually talked about Lithuania as a paradise. And she said that she was always like thinking, why? Many of them were forced out. They went to the DP camps. They were deported and then left. Wars, everything. Why was Lithuania a paradise for them? And she said, I started to think that Lithuania was paradise because they were always singing. And Lithuanian songs, they weren't just, they weren't short, you know? And they could last for a very long time because people would sing when they worked. People would sing in the evenings. They would sing in celebrations. They had all these types of songs, actually, you know? And people saw Lithuania as paradise because they would put everything into song and they would do it together. When people were together, they would sing. And I feel that it's an important lesson, about connecting to our ancestry and to other people who share Lithuanian roots. This is what gives us feeling of connection, and this is what gives us the feeling of Lithuania. And I must say that if we start researching our family history, we almost automatically start researching our culture, whether we know it or not. And the possibilities and the knowledge that we might achieve through this. They're endless, and we can learn like a lot of things, and we can learn these secret meanings of the culture, of the symbolism of mythology. We can actually try and look into this magic that we feel when we think about Lithuania. And this is what we are going to talk in the upcoming course, Lithuanian Genealogy and Culture 2. And this is a list of topics. I think I have mentioned we'll talk more about Jewish research and Lutheran research, among other things. And these are the times. Of course, all the sessions, they will be recorded. So if you cannot just join one or two or any meetings, live, you can listen to the recordings always and ask questions then via email. I sometimes it takes some time for me to answer, but I answer them all, and I think we are going to have a very nice time. And I hope that I will be able to help you learn more about your ancestor culture, about the things that were important to your ancestors, and also maybe are important to you. So now I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll come back to you and we'll read the questions. Okay, I'm going back. Let's see. And if you have questions now, you can, put them here in the chat. How distinct is Lithuanian mythology to other Baltic mythologies? This is very interesting, actually, because if you read the old studies of these old scholars who maybe weren't always very exact, they had some misconceptions. But if we look at them, sometimes they say it's Lithuanian mythology, but they speak about all Baltic tribes that were, still known about, like Prussian and Latvian. And a lot of them would divide Samogitian and Lithuanian, like as separate tribes. But there are differences and there are similarities. A lot of it is similar because they had the same root. And if you look at Latvian and if you look at Lithuanian, you'll see similarities in the symbolism. Even, for example, let's take this. Here, I have it on my wrist. And this is like a wristband. And they are traditional both in Lithuania and Latvia. And this is actually Latvian. But if you look, there are books, and there are these patterns that you can follow. You'll see almost identical patterns. So what does that mean? But there are differences. There are definitely differences. And even there are studies, about the gods and the goddesses, etc. And they saw that there were some different gods believed in different tribes, but a lot of it was also similar. And even if there are some books written a few hundred years ago that say this is about Prussian mythology, but if you read it, you'll see that it's also about Lithuanian mythology. So yeah, we'll try to look into that. How are you able to research who was sent to Siberia and if they passed away there? Okay. This is the Lithuanian database for deported people, siberia.lt. It means Lithuanians in Siberia. And if you go there, you can search by the surname and see if there were people deported with the surname. You might know that Lithuanian male and female surnames, they are different. And you might want to skip the end of the surname. For example, my surname is Žemeikytė, so I would only put like first part, I wouldn't put the suffix and the ending, because then you'll see all people with this name. But this database, it will only give you like it's kind of an index with the most important information: the person's name, when was he or she deported, when they came back, or if they passed away there, and what was the area they were sent to. And then if you find them there, you should contact Lithuanian Special Archive and ask them to find a deportation. I'm trying to copy the link now. Ask them to find the deportation file about this family or this person. Because if it was a family, they would have like one file. If it was a separate person, then. And they will find it for you. You'll need to pay like 20 euros or something. And they will give you like a certificate. And then you can choose if you want them to make copies, and then you pay maybe 70 euros or 100 euros and you will receive copies. Or you can either, go there when you visit Lithuania if you are planning to, or ask someone who lives locally in Vilnius to go there and take pictures, because then you can, maybe have better copies and save that money. So if you maybe have like cousins here, or even I think if it's a long file, you can ask how many pages are there, and then they can maybe it will be easier for you and maybe cheaper for you to ask someone, especially if there are a few files, so for someone to go and take pictures and hire them for this job, or then asking the archive for the copies. And I'm not sure how they are doing it for foreign people, because here in Lithuania they really like to send you physical copies, and by physical copies I mean that they make black and white copies, and they are not very good, because if um, the color of the page is brownish or yellowish, then it will become dark gray in the copy. So then it's not very good. I hope that helped. Yeah, Čiurlionis, okay. What are the straw hangings called in Lithuanian? They have many names actually, but usually they are called šiaudų sodai or šiaudiniai sodai. But they are also called, some of the names are related to garden. Sodas is a garden, but there are also names related to spiders. So it's very interesting, and in each region you can find these different names for them. I think that there is a website that is dedicated to especially them, but maybe I'll try to find something for you in English and send you the link in the email, and you can read about them a little bit. Let's see. Do you know where I can find records about the Lithuanian partisans? There are two databases. Of course, you can also find some, I think, in the Central Lithuanian Archive, but let's see. There are several databases. One of them is called laisveskovos.lt, which means fights of freedom. So there they have lists of partisans. But also, the Lithuanian Special Archive, they have this project which is called Partisan Archive, where you can search for documents and pictures. So I have put those links in the chat. Okay. Looking forward. Okay, I'm glad. I'm really glad that you're waiting for this course, because I am too. And at first, I have been struggling with conveying what I am going to talk about in this course. And I really wanted people to see what I feel, about these topics, because I think that they are really interesting. I personally think it will be another thing if I manage to talk about them in an interesting way, but the topics themselves, they are interesting. But I'm happy that people are actually interested and that they are waiting for this course. And I'm also putting the link to the registration in the chat in case you want to open it now. And I think that it should be useful, if maybe you have some background information about the country, but you want to learn more. It's okay. I mean, you can take the course. You can see that I'm trying, maybe to fill some gaps for people who haven't participated in the first one. But it's fine. I mean, if you have some basic knowledge, you'll kind of catch up, and that's fine. Again, well, if you'd like, there is also an option, because now this first course, the Lithuanian Genealogy 101, is still happening. And we'll have part 3. It's a 3-part course, and we'll have part 3 next weekend. So if you register now, I'll send you the recordings for part 1 and 2 immediately. You can listen to them, and you can participate in part 3 next weekend, and then you will have like the full picture. So if you'd like, you can also do that. I have put the link also in the chat now. But otherwise, if you don't want to, or you can't, then it should be fine. So the last link I have put here, you should see it. I will also send all the links, including these links to my website, but also the links that we talked about today. I will send you them via email, but I'm repeating it. This is the link to register. So if you register today, I will immediately send you the recordings, and then you can have that info too. Part 1 was partly about language a little bit, but in a different way, because in the second course, we are going to talk about language from the historical perspective, how it formed. And in part 1 of the first course, we are talking about the alphabet, the names, the suffixes, how the names might have been changed in other countries. And I provide these handouts in this course. One of the handouts is for Lithuanian names and how they could have been changed to English. Another handout is about Lithuanian surnames, how they might have been changed to English, for example. But also, I have put this handout together with links to the surname database. So you can then check each of those surnames in this handout. It's like a Google Sheets file, so it's active. And you just press on those links, and you can see about that surname, which locations was it popular in. So you kind of have an idea then where your ancestors might have lived in if you don't know. Yeah, so you are free to register. It's still a week until part 3. So you'll have time, and until part 1 of the second course, it's 2 weeks. So, it's kind of enough time to go through the materials too. Do we have any other questions? I'm just surprised. We are finishing exactly on time, as I promised, 1 hour and a half, because sometimes I start speaking so much that it's difficult to finish at the time I promised. And it might be, with the second course that sometimes will take more time than predicted, because sometimes people have more questions, sometimes they have less. And, I'll just ask you, what do you think? Is it better to have those lectures on Zoom or on YouTube? Because either way, you will be able to ask questions in the chat, etc. But if we do it on Zoom, then one benefit is that if internet connection is worse on my end, sometimes that happens, and I can switch off my camera and then the connection doesn't break. And on YouTube, you cannot do that. Another benefit is that we can discuss some things at the end of the session. You can, switch on your cameras and we can talk. So I haven't decided yet, because I think that we have had this problem with internet connection in summer, because there were a lot of thunderstorms going around, and the thunderstorm isn't happening like where I live, but if it's somewhere close, then internet connection was bad, and then we had problems. But now it's cold already, so we don't have those anymore. But yeah, so if you have a preference, let me know. It might be a deciding factor, because I'm still thinking what to do. So I will send you, those who register, I will send you joining links before each session. Usually I try to do it a day before, but sometimes if I don't manage to do it, then I try to send it when it's morning here. So I guess that might be nighttime for many of you, but yeah, you'll still receive it. And if you don't, please inform me at least 1 hour before the start, because sometimes the emails get lost in the spam and they get filtered out. So then try to reach me anywhere, on Facebook page, in the group. We have this group, by the way. I will link it now, because maybe it's, well, I think that maybe it's nice to to be there and be able to reach other people who are interested too. Facebook group. So if you cannot reach me any other way, you can just, you can just post in that group and I'll see it. Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, I'll see you soon, I think. Some people I'll see in this first course, and some people I'll see on 19th of October. And if you have any more questions that you think of later, email me, and yeah, we'll talk. Okay? Hope this session was useful. If you want to comment something, you can also email me. And I hope you are having a good day, or morning, or evening. And where you are, there are people from all around the world. When I was doing the first group of the very first course, I found it so fascinating that so many people from so many different places got together. It felt surreal. Now I kind of got used to it, but it's very interesting that, and with some people, we share. We might even have like a distant DNA match, and we are on completely different locations all around the world. So it's interesting. Yeah. Okay. I'll see you soon. I'll be sending the links. This, well, it will be evening for me. It will be probably, well, I try to do it now, because I have another another session with someone in an hour, but I'll try to do it now. And you can open the links and check them out. Have a nice Saturday, and bye bye.